No manipulation. None whatsoever. That's one of my images. That was done, a process to a transparency. But I have to explain constantly that this is not done in Photoshop. And by the way, Photoshop is now used as a verb. Hey, you can just Photoshop that. Same thing. No manipulation. That is directly what was on the transparency. The only thing was that it was scanned and printed as is.
Now, isn't that a chemically altered transparency?
If you consider water a chemical. Yes.
Manipulated.
Okay, so manipulated from what it was, but I was no different than burning and dodging in a way. That is the only information, all that information was on the transparency. It was there.
If you shoot it by the water.
No, what I shot didn't look like that at all. But that was not my concept. It was not to shoot it as I saw it. Well, hold on.
This is Dennis may not know this, but Dennis has contributed to a process that has been present in photography for a long time. I happened to do my master's thesis on this process. It's called cliché vert. This was 20 years ago now. But cliché vert is a French term that refers to taking a negative and then altering the negative somehow, which is what you've done. Either you've done or you've found it that way. The negative gets altered, and then the negative is what it is after it's altered, and you print it. So there's no manipulation, as you're describing it. There's no manipulation in the print, but there was manipulation to the negative. And it isn't always, in your case it's a slide negative, but often these are 8 by 10 negatives, and you've got lots of room to do a lot of stuff, drawing on them and doing scratching on them and all kinds of things. So it ends up being more painterly than it is more photography. But it's similar to what happens afterwards in the computer when you're doing digital manipulation, only you're doing it beforehand on the negative. Seems to me. True.
If that's a water spray negative, do you still have the master as it was originally shot?
The transparency?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It looks like that. Nothing was copied.
Okay, but that's what you shot?
No.
So you don't have what you originally shot?
Yes, I do.
I have a transparency that I treated with water and printed. I still have it. It looks like that. Correct. When I got the transparency back from the lab, it did not look like that. I did something to it. Now, manipulation, if it's not digital, then you get back into the darkroom too. I'm not adding anything. I mean, I added water, but that's not what you see. What you see is all the different layers that were already present. They're just altered from their present position.
No matter how you call it, it's been manipulated. This has nothing to do with judgment of art or anything else. Whether it's beautiful or ugly or whatever, that has nothing to do with it whatsoever. You can't take a transparency. What Leslie was asking basically is, you don't have the transparency the way it came back from the lab anymore because it's been altered, and altered is manipulation.
So that's back to our starting point, which is at what point does it become altered? So at that point, it's what came back from the lab, what was processed, was considered the starting point. Correct? Okay.
Sorry, I have another comment here. So if I shoot a raw image, okay, and then I take and I duplicate that image and make changes to it, I still have my original that I can always go to, and then I have one that's manipulated. Now, if I make simple adjustments, to me that's entirely different. But I'm not going to make it to the raw. I'm going to make it to a copy. And an adjustment would be brightness, contrast, whatever, which are subtle. If I totally change color and anything else, that's manipulation, at least in my mind.
But you made a copy, so you are actually working on another image. Having the original, to me, has no reference whatsoever. You have a copy and you're playing with the copy. You're manipulating an image. Whether you have the original, that's not changed or not. So.
Yes. I think two important definitions. I think of it as correcting. You correct an image or you manipulate an image. If you're changing the contrast, the brightness a little bit, just minor little things like if you can do it in CoPA or some basic, photography at anything, like that's correcting. But if you're manipulating the image and changing it, like there's two different extremes and like there's different definitions. And, I think it's correcting and manipulating, like changing.
Well, what standard to correcting is there? I mean, at what point can you say this image is corrected?
Yeah, that's varying, but I mean, there's two different, categories. You're not manipulating an image if you make it a little bit brighter. You're correcting your image.
I'm just going to jump ahead real quick here. Okay, perfect example here. As it was shot, this is as it was shot. Corrected? Enhanced? Manipulated? Well, different word. Enhanced is what? Still manipulated. Nothing was added to that. I changed the information that was there. Corrected? Manipulated. That is what the market wants, though. For this type of photography, this is encouraged. No, but it's still a statement. It's accepted. This is not an issue whether an image is manipulated regarding this kind of photography or not. Corrected?
Well, what I did was I just changed the hue in Photoshop. That's all I did. Nothing added.
Just the hue.
No, just that master hue. That's all I did. I mean, I wanted it to look. The original didn't look like I wanted it to look. This question is, what was the shift? And it was sort of that brownish tone that you get with a night picture, and the sign that Mark was asking about was green, the reality color. And I did try it where I kept it the blue with the red green, but I just liked it better. My question about this was, I had this up at the group exhibit, and I was wondering, this has actually been one of the most popular ones that I show. People like it. But I also heard the comments like, oh, he just did that in Photoshop. And so my question to everyone is, how do you answer that?
Technically you did.
So all of this information in this image was present when you took it.
Yes, I just changed that hue. That's all I did. Yep.
Manipulated?
A lot of this is semantic. You can call things whatever you want. The simplest prints I make in black and white, I have to make two decisions. After I've shot the film and processed it, there's decisions there on contrast and exposure. Then when I print it, I have to choose a paper grade and I have to choose an exposure. That before we ever get to gray and dodgy. And all those things I choose not based on I'm trying to reproduce certain values as I saw them, but I'm trying to capture a certain feeling I had when I looked at the subject, and I'm trying to pass that on to the viewer. And I make those decisions based on how I believe the viewer's eyes are going to react to this, not on what the literal values as they existed in nature were.
Is the process important enough to bring up in relation to the final print?
You should never have to defend your work.
But it's not defending, isn't it more describing?
If you believe that there's honesty within the image that you've taken, that whether it's within your mind's eye or with what's in the perceived eye of the camera, because, this is going back to the beginning again, but the instant that you take a photograph of something, you've manipulated the scene. You've taken it from a particular angle, place. It's not exactly what was there. It's what you saw and what you wanted the camera to see. So if you believe that there's an honesty within your image, even if you've done something to alter it, whether it's dodging and burning, or taking off an extra finger from a six-fingered person, then it's all about what your perception of something was, and I don't believe you should have to defend your work at all. You can explain things, what you meant, but you should never have to defend yourself against something.
So nowadays we have the tools to completely change an image into something totally unrecognizable. It's still considered a photograph.